is Screens, Tweens, and Teens, how to monitor, mentor, and be mindful. Just a little bit about me. I taught high school and junior high. I became a guidance counselor and then became a school administrator. And I spent around 21 years on a secondary campus. And I'm currently raising 4 girls, ages 11, 12, and 13. So I feel like I'm right in the middle of what you're right in the middle of, and together we're going to find some answers. So tonight's presentation is really about technology and devices, but for me it's also about looking at your family and putting technology in a good place where you are leading technology as opposed to technology leading you. So I will talk about devices and screen time impact and apps and ways to monitor and mentor, but I really do focus mostly on the relationship between parents and child, and then multiple children in the household having different plans based on how they're wired. So last night I was in the Paradise Valley School District, and at the end of my presentation, a woman said, "Well, you've done a great job of completely horrifying me. Which landing page did you want to leave me on?" And I said, well, the eventual landing page that I'd love to leave you on tonight is feeling empowered and prepared instead of scared and horrified. So I made a new slide and said, okay, my goal for parents is to, again, enable and empower you to really clarify your role as it relates to devices that you've probably already given. So looking up here at restrictor, enabler, and mentor, those are typically the types of parents that I talk to on a daily basis. I started doing this work in 2005 as an administrator. I was writing thousands of referrals per year on students using devices in inappropriate and silly and explicit ways. And so I started talking to parents about, what are you doing at home to help guide and support them? So as I've watched for 15 years, I see these 3 types of parents. There are parents that totally restrict everything, and most students find a way around you. I see parents that are like, we had Atari, you'll be fine, and they enable everything. And then I see parents that really step into the divide, and knowing that we are a month and a half away from 2020, it is definitely time to step into the divide and work in tandem with your student. So goals for your children, I have identifying digital candy versus digital vegetables. Everything that goes on in Madison at school is digital vegetables. Technology is an advancing tool. It's not going anywhere, and it does amazing things for us. You probably learned about tonight using technology. So we get on our kids about what I call digital candy all the time, but we also need to be talking to them about the positive things around how they're using technology for good. These are our leaders. They're going to lead us into the future. On the last part here, goals for your children as well. We want them to be literate in the use of media and technology. We want you to also be literate in the technology use and media. We also want children to be able to be self-governed and dignified. My goal for any 8 through 15-year-old is spending those 7 years really getting them to the point where they don't really need you to intervene and take away devices and be monitoring and supervising as much as you're probably doing right now. The goal is for them to take flight and to use technology for good. I also want them to be the creator of a responsible digital footprint. Most of what our students are hearing right now about technology sounds something like this. You're burning your brain out. If you post something dumb or stupid, you're probably not going to get into college. And if you send an inappropriate photo, you're definitely not ever going to get a job, and you're probably going to prison. So that is what I hear from kids, is negative, negative, negative. And we live in a cancel culture. We live in a culture where even schools sometimes look at a mistake, make a suspension, and don't offer a pathway back. So we've learned some things along the way from doing that, and I see school districts doing such a better job of thinking about a 10-day suspension for something that maybe could be a 5-day suspension or a 3-day suspension, or finding some sort of restorative practice so that a mistake that was made at 12 doesn't become a lifelong sentence. So know that we are working proactively on that front as well. Tonight, as I said, is really much less about devices and so much more about you strengthening the relationship with your kids, having empathy for them, trying to understand that this new landscape of childhood has definitively changed due to the technology. I won't read this slide at you, but I was honored to be able to give the keynote this year at the Back to School Teacher Rally. And there were about 800 employees here. And one of the things that I really wanted to outline for them is the intersection of some things that have definitively changed. One of them is the push for academic rigor. Another is restriction of recess and rough and tumble play. And the other is about 10, 12 years ago, we told kids that everything was bullying. And we did that because we were afraid. And we're still sort of afraid. We're living as parents in a culture where we have hunkered down and we want to make sure that nobody's gonna hurt our babies. And unfortunately, some of the deficits that come from that are we're seeing lower coping skills, lower resiliency, and lower social competence because kids don't have agency in their own conflict, in their own life, in the choices that we're making for them. So I'll talk a little bit about each of those subjects tonight, but I want to outline where we're at as parents. After 9/11, after Columbine, after Parkland, after Santa Clarita, every time we have a tragic incident that happens, we all start filling our hearts again with this very thin veil of terror. And what kids hear from us most often is the world is sort of unsafe. Whether you're telling an 8-year-old you can't go to the bathroom by yourself because somebody might kidnap you, or you're telling a 12-year-old, no, you can't go to the mall because Arizona is the #1 state for human trafficking, the messages that we're afraid about are being displaced on them. When we tell kids that everything is bullying, somebody kicked you under a table, somebody pushed you into the locker, somebody didn't invite you to their birthday party, what we've said to kids is, go get an adult. If you're on the playground and somebody calls you fat, go tell the paraprofessional. Somebody kicks you under the table during class, go tell your teacher. And so the locus of control has become the adult. So if you are really tired, it's because we have done all of this heavy lifting for our kids. So I want to encourage you, if you have multiple children, or you have a child that has some cousins that they play with and they fight with, we know to be true that kids know how to have healthy conflicts. And we know to be true, based on what we see between siblings, that they know absolutely how to handle their conflict at home. We need to transfer those skills to the school level in an appropriate and safe way. So what I'm asking you to think about as you head into 2020 is please let your child suffer. Please let them have appropriate conflict, and please let them strategize with you, what should I do next? The school is there to definitively support you, and Madison will absolutely guide you through that process if you need it. But many of the things that happen at school are typical daily conflict that is developmentally normal. Obviously, if somebody is in imminent harm, it's ongoing, it's egregious, it's just all the time. Absolutely, you want your child to go find an adult. But most middle school students, most 4th through 8th grade students for sure, are fully capable of turning to another human being and saying, knock it off. Please stop. I don't like when you said that. You're my friend. That really hurt my feelings. But we tend to intervene, whether we're educators or parents, and we swoop in, and they never have that practice of their own voice. And that relates to devices in that if you've given your child a device, you have given your child the opportunity to be hit with a lot of pain from other students, and also to turn around and inflict pain on others. And so dignity and the voice that they have in their use of their device is extremely important as well. So having girls, I have 5 sisters, I have 4 daughters, I have no sons, I have no brothers. So I have lived a long time in an estrogen tide pool, and I love it. But part of what's going on with some of these apps that we've given our children access to is we've laid down a very strong runway for them to compare themselves to other people. And it's not just girls, but girls tend to take in images a little bit differently than boys do. So prior to age 2, you've probably taken about 2,000 photos of your student. And so by age 12, so many thousands of photos. And the reason I'm pointing this out is often we're putting out our front stage. We're not talking about our backstage. So if I went to any of your platforms tonight, I would probably see some beautiful families, vacations, homes, golden scholars, all sorts of great stuff going on. What kids are watching is your every move. And if everything you're posting is perfect, then that is the bar that you've set. And that is where they feel like I have to measure up to this family expectation, but I also have to measure up to the restricted, filtered photos and lives of my peers as well. And it is an immense amount of pressure, both academically as well as socially. So those are some things to think about and to look out for as you're giving device use to your children. So I had the opportunity to share this with the teachers as well. The brains that are showing up in our classrooms have been rewired. The brain at the top is a really healthy brain, lots of blood flow, cognition, sustained memory. The brain on the bottom, you can see the neurons are starting to split apart. The emotions are probably starting to dull. We've been sitting for a long time playing Fortnite for 9 hours and not taking a shower, going to the bathroom, things like that. So the top brain is using digital vegetables. The bottom brain is probably using some digital candy for an extended period of time. So when we talk about social, emotional, and physical health and wellness, this is the impact on the developing brain. And it has completely rewired how they behave, how they show up at school, what they expect from teachers, what they want out of their lessons is fast-moving and stimulating lesson plans. And so I do a lot of faculty training on how does the video game industry actually get a few things right. So I'll ask just a couple questions of you. If you were to name 2 goals that the video game industry has for our families, what would 1 or 2 of them be? Stay on a long time, so sustained use, and the other big, huge one, spend money, right? So my goal is to take this beautiful brain and shove it so far down into the brainstem into fight, flight, or freeze. So when mean mom or dad walks in and says, time for dinner, this brain is like, no way, Jose, I don't want to get off. So when you see behavior that frustrates you, when you feel like you're nagging them all the time, you have to be aware that this brain has been completely hijacked. It is doused in cortisol, it is doused in dopamine. It is not your child's fault that they don't want to get off the game. There's a huge social connection, there's a neuroscientific component going on. And so my suggestion to you, if you want them to get off the game, is to give a little bit of lead time so that if dinner's at 6, you're telling them at 5. Like dinner's at 6 and you're giving them some warning. I would also suggest that you have them move their body and drink water after playing a game. That will immediately dissipate the cortisol and the dopamine, and you will get your kid back. So some of these platforms that are digital candy have some redeeming qualities, and I'll point those out. But what we worry the most about is this untethered access and what it's doing not only to the body, but also to the brain as well. So for those of you that have not seen Fortnite, you might want to hold on to your chairs. It's very fast moving, very stimulating, but what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to just count to 8 seconds, and I want you to focus, put aside for right now, that it's a first-person shooter game. I want you to look at how fast it moves, how many people are in the scene, and how many times the scene changes. And I want you to imagine, as you're counting to only 8 seconds, what a young boy or girl is doing for 4 hours and what impact that might have on their brain.
We should be all right here. This is weird. Like, is it getting attacked from the other side?
So that was about 8 seconds.
I don't think so. I think I'm just going to chill up here for a second. What the F is that thing? What the F is that?
So that was about 16 seconds. So imagine being on that for an extended period of time each day. So this world is pretty genius. There's strategy, there's competition, there's collaboration. I have a headset, I get to be with my friends, I get to be loud. I can reset if I'm not doing well. Sometimes in the classroom or at home, I don't get a second chance. I don't get a do-over. So video games have completely sucked in some of our kiddos because in a place in the classroom where I don't feel like I have a place, I definitely have a place here. And so some of our students are drifting to platforms like this because they finally have found a place that welcomes them. So as you're processing this information, just something to think about, when I'm doing faculty trainings, I talk about what does this game have that your students are after? And what they call out is it has novelty, it has relevance, and it has competition and collaboration. Those are things that Madison teachers have been trained in. Those are things they're incorporating into their lesson plans. So my expectation is not that teachers need to compete with video games, but I do think the industry has some things right. And I do think that kids will thrive if some of those things are incorporated on a daily basis. Questions so far? Okay, you're not horrified yet. Okay.
We should.
So, as we look at other things, hormones, neurotransmitters, we have some gains and we have some losses. So what they're gaining is dopamine and cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone. Dopamine is the feel-good hormone. So those are huge gains. There's a light side to cortisol and a dark side to cortisol. We want our kids to have a little bit of good stress. We don't want them to be completely incapacitated by stress. Other things that they're getting from games and platforms, oxytocin and serotonin. So oxytocin's our bonding hormone. There's a light side to that, right? Serotonin is the mood regulation hormone. If our kids are up all night on video games and devices, serotonin levels are going to be pretty out of whack. They're already pretty out of whack going through puberty in 5th through 12th grade. And so some of these things that you're seeing behaviorally make a lot of sense from a neuroscience perspective. So I have the privilege of partnering with ASU, and we co-facilitate together. And one of the people I co-facilitate with shared some of his slides with me. These are the American College Health Association statistics for the last 10 years. So when you are reading articles about electronic devices and anxiety and depression and suicide and self-harm, and you are completely freaking out inside, as we all should be, I want you to look at these and recognize that this generation, they really have destigmatized mental health. They are coming to us in droves and saying, I'm listening to you. When I don't feel okay, I'm coming to get help. For our Title I population who may never have had services pre-K through 12, they're coming to the university and they're getting the help that they need. And so as we look at our devices, the only thing that are causing stress, anxiety, and depression in the world, the answer is absolutely not. But they are a piece of it. And so as you look at some of these trends on stress and obviously thoughts of suicide, nobody really wants to see that it's gone up 100%. But a lot of things in the world have changed in the last 10 years. The landscape of childhood has changed in the last 10 years. So as you're handing over devices, we have to get really clear on how much do you want to know about what's on the device. When you see something on the device that may be distressful or suicidal, where can you go to get the resources? Because some of them are limited in Maricopa County, and so knowing up front what you're looking for is really important. And everything you want to know about your child is on their device. There is no mystery to their life. Every school shooter that has decided to come and do something dangerous at school has posted for weeks and weeks and weeks. The students that we have lost to suicide have shared messages with your children and other children for weeks and weeks and weeks. So this is really no mystery to us, but we have to dial in and really supervise and monitor what's going on. So again, American College Health Association stats. So these are our pre-K through 12 students that are leaving us. So this is a reflection of university. I'll tell you, we're seeing the same things on our campuses pre-K through 12. And so we have to get really clear about how to help them. And when we say we're here for you, we have to show up. This generation has a very strong sense of justice. And when we say things to them like, you matter, I love you, they are looking at us like, really? I want you to prove it to me. Where? How can I feel supported by you? So looking at this public health model approach to well-being and social emotional wellness, I'd call your attention to most of our kids are doing really well. Some of our kids are moving from well-being into distress and back to well-being and into distress. You actually want your kid to have a little bit of distress. Where we don't want kids moving is from distress into crisis. And where you will find out if they're in crisis is right here. This will tell you everything you want to know about how that slide is going south and how quickly it's going south. So a lot of parents will ask me, well, I feel like that's an invasion of their privacy. So in this world and landscape, it's my professional feeling after watching this for so long that our number one goal is to protect our kids. And if they're a harm to themselves or others, then we have to be monitoring and supervising and err on the side of caution. So I'll give you some tips on balancing privacy and safety, and also what to tell your kids if somebody comes to them and says, this is how I'm feeling and this is what I'm gonna do. So these are typical burning questions that most parents ask at the end of my presentation. I'd invite you to ask me anything else, and if I don't know the answer, I will get you the answer. Is there anything right now that you're already thinking like, this is something that I absolutely need to know before I leave tonight? Yes? Got it, which is my next couple slides, so thank you so much. It was a good segue. All right, other questions that are popping up? Okay, yes? Sure. Okay. Yep. That's like every household in America idea, right? So I call that the dance, and so I will give you, I think, a pretty solid strategy around that. And some things to think about as you're taking the device away, what to replace it with. Because when we take it away, we have to replace it with something to strengthen the relationship. Because we are dancing, and in the middle of the dance, we're losing their trust. And the stakes are really high, really high. So thank you for those two questions, and please go ahead. Your line never stops. Your line never stops if you want to be a good villager. I had to make a very difficult phone call yesterday to a fellow 5th grade mom because her child disclosed to my child that she had been on an app that's chat roulette and that a man exposed himself to her. And so for me, I had a choice to say nothing, because is it really my business, or to protect a child. And so I, Katie, feel very personally convicted that if this fellow mom gets mad at me, which has often happened, that I'm willing for somebody to be mad at me and feel like I judge their parenting. I'm okay with that. I can live with that. I can sleep with that, knowing that I may have saved a life. So I'll give you some strategies on how to talk to fellow moms about that. Dads do an amazing job. There's this thing with dads where they call another dad and the other guy's like, cool, thanks so much. Moms, we are not nice. We are not nice, and we lose friendships. And so I'll give you some strategies, and I call it the dumb girl approach, on how to convey that message and then move on your merry way. So that is an awesome question, which I will also address. So I operate on the rule of 5. So my target market is actually 3rd through 5th grade students prior to getting access to social media. So prior to getting access to social media or the internet, my goal or my magic wand dream would be that 5 years before your child is going to be exposed to anything on this slide, that you have already had ongoing, pervasive conversations about it. So if you are sitting here with a 13-year-old and you're like, oops, I haven't talked about any of this, it's okay. I'm gonna give you some places to go to have those courageous conversations. But the reality is, if you've given a device to a child and said, good luck with 4 billion strangers and the World Wide Web, they've already seen all this. They've already been exposed to all of it. It doesn't matter if you're a restrictor. Aiden's mom is super cool, and they've seen it all at Aiden's house, which you cannot control. But everything that kids are exposed to is on the internet. And so if you haven't restricted and set settings and have a really good router that's filtering out some of the yuck, chances are your kids have either talked about it, done it, or been exposed to it. And so we just need to be really clear about what we've given over, and then in 2020 do a better job of having some conversations with our kids. So I'll talk some more about that as well. So as you're sitting here thinking about what is my goal in 2020, I almost want you to raise your right hand and promise that tonight you will not go home and take anything away. You will not go home and take anything away until at least January 1. I want you to do nothing, because you need to get super clear and consistent about what you mean by technology, its use, its value, and what your desired outcome is. So I'll just share with you my desired outcome for my 4 girls is, by age 15, 16, that they are basically self-governing their device. I'm still collecting it at night. I'm still supervising and monitoring it, but that I have given them guidance and support, and they have taught me how to use this thing for good, and that they are cultivating a digital presence that is going to land them thousands of dollars in scholarship money, that's going to land them a job, that's going to land them an internship wherever they want to go. Your child needs to have a responsible digital presence if you want them to have futuristic opportunities. So when I ask kids, what is the value and function of your parents' phones, what do you think I hear from them? Instagram, okay. YouTube. What do you think most kids say about their dads? What kind of technology is their father using? What was that? Most of them say, I'm really tired of seeing my dad's head, the top of his head, doing work on his laptop. Most of the kids say about their moms, like, my mom is ridiculous. She is always on Facebook, she's always on Instagram, and sometimes she's crushing candy. So when I talk to kids at assemblies, and then I say, I'm going to see your parents tonight, is there anything you want me to tell your parents? They say, if they value their phone so much, and they're asking me not to value mine, that's unfair. And if their desired outcome for me is to be a good digital citizen and to model good behavior, then I expect the same from them. And if we're really honest, everywhere we go, we are head down. Everywhere we go. Restaurants, airports, in our cars, in the parking lot, sitting next to them on the couch, right? And so they're kind of tired of it. And so for me, I really want you to think about, why are you giving the phone? Why are you giving access? And what kind of content you want your child to consume. Because there's a difference between digital candy and digital vegetables. There's a lot of stuff on YouTube that's digital vegetables. There are many platforms that can be used for good. I've trained students in junior high and high school how to use Instagram for a cause, for a brand, how to market themselves, to get scholarships for athletics, etc. There are many different uses of these types of platforms. So you had asked about, how do I approach technology as a privilege, not a right? So if for Christmas I say, it is Christmas and I'm so excited to give you this iPhone 11 XR with the 3 cameras, good luck. And then on December 26th, he slugs his brother and you take it away. And then on December 27th, you're really tired and you give it back. And then on January 7th, when school resumes and they didn't do their math homework and you take it away, that's the dance that we're all doing. And in the middle of the dance, they are staring at you and they are saying, you are unfair, I do not trust you, and I'm gonna work all the way around you, and you're not gonna know anything I'm doing. And I'm definitely not gonna come to you if I have a big, huge safety issue. So my advice, and I will give this to the district to get to you, is having a family data contract. You're sitting down with your child, who is 10, 11, 12, 13 on up maybe, or younger, and the whole family is saying, what do we think is fair? If your academics are sliding, do you get technology use? If you're a jerk to me or your teachers, do you get technology use? There are several non-negotiables that I would definitely say are deal breakers. Giving away private information, sharing body parts, sharing anything about your family that should not be out there. Anything that could put them in harm's way, that is like a non-negotiable. But part of students using these devices for good is giving them a say in how they get to use it and what happens when they make a mistake. So this family data contract, I'm going to tell you right now, your kids are going to break some of the rules, for sure, 100%. Our goal is to outline for them, these are the reasonable boundaries and consequences around this. I love you, I'm here to protect you, and when you make a mistake, here's your pathway back. And so that they feel like we're all in this together as opposed to us versus them. Because the us versus them is not working. You're exhausted, they are not. You're furious, they are not. And they're starting to drift and do things that are really putting them at risk. Any questions about family data contracts so far? So we're giving them dignity in the use of their device. So I presented this platform at the start of the school year for all of the Madison district office employees, teachers, paraprofessionals, Kids Express, all of the people that were here. And it's really where I've stood for the last 10 years, is that kids need to know they're worthy. They need to know they have dignity. They also need to be socially competent. Dr. Baca worked in a high school district with 25,000 teenagers. When your kids leave Madison K through 8, I want them to go to large high schools and move in and out of different groups of kiddos with ease, standing up for themselves and standing up for others. That's a true social justice champion. That's a school that is safe. The only way they can do that is if they know they have dignity and they know that they're socially competent and that they have painful, messy, horrible things happen to them where they rise up and say, this isn't okay with me. The last piece we've already talked about, being literate in how to use this technology. And so the reason that I bring up school safety and home safety and dignity is, it is where these devices rest. if you've given them dignity in the use of their device, and they have people coming at them and challenging them, what they look like, what they wear, their height, their weight, their race, their sexuality, which is happening to them every day, all day long. On Monday, I did 3 assemblies for 1,200 kids at Mojave Middle School in Scottsdale. And I asked them, what do you think the average number of times per day that you get made fun of is? And I got 5 times, 12 times, and 40 times a day. And I asked them to really pay attention to, how are you taking care of that? And most of them were like, I'm not. I'm just letting it sit right here because I really don't have the skills to say something back. So I'd like to just share with you this short clip from Dr. Brené Brown. She's a researcher out of UT Houston. If you've never read her books or seen her, you need to know her. But I love her take on dignity.
But it really changed me. It's the practice that came from the book, and it is, don't walk through the world looking for evidence that you don't belong, because you will always find it.
Yes.
Don't walk through the world looking for evidence that you're not enough, because you'll always find it. Our worth and our belonging are not negotiated with other people. We carry those inside of our hearts. And so for me, I know who I am. I'm clear about that. And I'm not going to negotiate that with you. I will negotiate a contract with you. I will negotiate maybe even a topic with you, but I'm not going to negotiate who I am with you. Because then, and this is, I think, the heart of the book, then I may fit in for you, but I no longer belong to myself. And that is a betrayal I am not willing to do anymore. I spent the first 30 years of my life doing that. I'm not willing to betray myself anymore to fit in with you.
So the difference between Brené and your kids is they don't know who they are yet. They're still forming their identity and who they are. And every day somebody is asking them to change who they are. So they have a very short view of life. And they have a very short view of, I am negotiating who I am with these people to fit in. And devices help them feel unworthy. And so we have to be there for them to support and guide them through the process with strategies that actually help. When I talk to students about what actually helps, the things that don't help are some of our one-liners that we say to them when they come to us, like, calm down. You need to let it go. I'm so tired of your drama. I'm so tired of this device causing so much drama. The word drama is like a soap opera. When they come to you, what they're coming to you with is their inner pain. No matter how trivial you think it is, it rests on dignity. And so at the base of what they're going through in person and online is one kid taking away and stripping them of their dignity, or an adult with good intention, or sometimes not with good intention, taking their voice away. And so when we talk to them about, you need to be respectful, and you need to respect your teachers, and respect our home and your brothers, and all these things, they're staring at us like, I don't respect you. I don't respect him because he just took my dignity away, and you're asking me to say sorry. So I do a lot of training around the difference between dignity and respect. And I'm teaching you this tonight because as they come to you with big things and little things and trivial things and things that are happening on these devices, if you can listen and give them a chance to stand up for their dignity, you're going to have a really great, productive kid. If our go-to response is, Snapchat is stupid and you need to ignore your best friend, they're going to find a workaround around you. And they will continue to just kind of find ways to depart from you because they don't feel like you understand. So I'm going to close out the last couple of minutes that I have with you to show you some pretty graphic examples of what's going on online. I chose rated G versions. So as you look at these and maybe are a little bit taken aback, imagine what I'm not showing you, because there's a lot out there. So human beings have two choices with pain. We either transmit it on someone else or we transform it. Your child doesn't know how to transform pain yet. They have a very underdeveloped brain. So one of my neighbors came over with this screenshot, And her daughter's name is Hayden. She's in 8th grade. She has thousands of friends. She has a beautiful family. She's a cheerleader. And she said, I have no idea what to do with this. This is an anonymous Instagram post that says, I hate Hayden, so that's the name of the page. Stop telling me to take this down. She's a B word and deserves to die and go to Hell. She's the ugliest girl I've ever met, and she will never have a boyfriend. So-and-so even dropped her for Sage. Sage is another girl. F her, I hope she kills herself. So this was made on a Saturday. On Monday, you can see the photo of who we think created the page, getting everybody together to talk about it. So this is not a school issue. This is not a law enforcement issue. There was no direct threat made to her life. It's awful, it's horrible. Yes, it's bullying, yes, it's harassment. But the police can't come out and touch this, or they would be literally touching millions of these types of things. So imagine being Hayden, and if you didn't tell your parents, or your parents had no idea, and putting your head down on the pillow and trying to figure out at age 13, how the heck am I gonna go to school on Monday? What am I gonna say? I can't prove who did it. I think I know, but I don't know what to do. So yes, the school will help her. Yes, we have counselors that can guide her through that. But this is not a school disciplinary issue to legislate. This is unfortunately a parenting issue. So on the front of calling other people's parents, if she had a relationship with this other person, as a parent, you could reach out to the other parent. You can imagine if you start the conversation with, so your kid, that I would not do. So I have this dumb girl approach where I'm like, hey, I was checking Emma's phone and I saw something really weird, and I was wondering if you could check Chloe's phone and just kind of, can you like get back to me and let me know what you're seeing, because this is what I'm seeing. That sort of diffuses, and it's like, we're in this together. My kid might have screwed up. Pretty sure yours did too. Can we work on this together? As opposed to, I cannot believe what Chloe did to my kid. That's not gonna go well. You're gonna lose a friend, right? If you don't have a relationship with a parent, sometimes you can call the school counselor or somebody at the school and say, this is what's going on. I know you're really busy, but I'm wondering if you have any guidance or support that you could offer, or any suggestions or strategies that might help my kiddo get through this. So again, this happens every day, all day long. This is a very typical example of what our children are going through, and they need you to help them through it. So on the front of calling other parents, sexting, cyberbullying, alcohol, drugs, vapes, booty shots, anything that you see, in my personal and professional opinion, that is a safety issue. I have had hundreds of students send photos of themselves to their boyfriend or girlfriend, and their genitalia has made it around the school in less than 20 seconds. It is a real thing. Most of them don't know that it's a crime. And so as we're looking at how they're conveying pain to each other, I think it's really important to understand what they're after. So at the top here, I have the attachment cycle. Every device that's in your purse right now or in your pocket serves a need for you. Doesn't matter if you're 30, 40, 12, 8, we all want to be seen, heard, and loved. What devices help us do is to get seen, heard, and loved pretty quickly. So when you see your child derailing, when you see something's going on, I can't put my finger on it, ask yourself, what is he or she after? Am I seeing him? Am I hearing him? Am I loving him in the way he or she needs to receive it? If you see them drifting to the device to get those needs met, those needs are never going to be met in an authentic way like they are from you. And so balancing device use, I kind of use the analogy, this is Skittles, they need salmon. This is a very inauthentic way that in 20 seconds I can post an outrageous photo and I can get seen, heard, and loved really quickly. And so if you see, or when, I should say, when you see your child saying things that are outrageous, raw, edgy, explicit, telling grandiose lies about your family and what a jerk you are, seen, heard, loved, right? So behavior is a symptom of these unmet needs. Anything you're seeing that things are going south, that's a kiddo saying to you, I need you to see me. I really need you to hear me, and I definitely need to feel that I'm loved by you, even if I screwed up. Other examples of what goes on. These are rated G. Many students have multiple accounts that you don't know about. I would not spend your energy and time trying to track down every account that your child has. It will exhaust you. What I would spend time doing is when you see photos like this, whether it's your child, a photo they've been exposed to, a classmate that has spent the night at your house and eaten your Oreos, I want you to look at these kids as all of these kids are ours. All of these kids are doing things that we did too. We experimented with drugs and alcohol. We may have experimented with kissing. These are all pretty typical things, minus the one on the left, that all of us have done in the past. This generation just has an opportunity to show 7,000 people what they're doing, and they've had no training. We have handed this stuff over with no training. And so I feel really deeply that when you see things like this, sex, drugs, and rock and roll still sells. Still sells. It keeps me very current and very relevant in my social group. And the only thing I'm worried about in 5th through 12th grade is being cool. I want to be loved. I want to be heard. So there are many images out there like this. I'd also like to call your attention to some pretty harmful images. There are whole communities of self-harm. This one happens to be about suicide, anorexia, and bulimia. There are whole communities that welcome girls and boys in and say, you should starve yourself. You need to be thinner. This is how you do it. There are thousands of comments underneath here, and they're going back and forth talking about how they're going to do it. So if you have a child that is already starting to trend towards feeling like their body isn't something that they enjoy, I would be mindful and watchful of Instagram because it is so image-based. Also to note, people often ask me on the front of suicide and self-harm, how do these kids know how to do this? How on earth does a 10-year-old think about not wanting to be here tomorrow? The leading cause of death in the state of Arizona is suicide, age 10 to 14. The leading cause of death, age 15 to 34, is also suicide. So there are people, kids, adults, that are teaching kids how to harm themselves. And so knowing how to monitor and supervise and have big conversations around it at a young age is very crucial. So I'm going to end and then open for questions. I'm going to give you some strategies. If you don't have a good router, you need to get one. Buy it for yourself for Christmas or Hanukkah. So this is one of my favorites. There are hundreds out there. So this one's called eRow, and it is an open DNS server. So all of the information that comes into your home is filtered for explicit and vulgar content. You can also remotely, from the app that matches it, look at what your child is doing or children are doing. And you can assign them their own kind of account within the account. And if you see they've been on something too long, you can hit a button and then their Wi-Fi goes off. So we use this in our house, that at 9 o'clock every night, the Wi-Fi shuts down in zone 1, 2, and 3. There's no discussion. All devices go on a central charging station, and the Wi-Fi is turned off. The reason that you have to collect devices is twofold. Your kids need good sleep, 8 to 12 hours. Secondly, if you just turn off the Wi-Fi, all I have to do is turn on my data and go around you. So you have to actually collect the device as well. Questions on routers so far? Okay. Central charging station. All devices need to be collected. Everyone needs good sleep. Sleepovers. Nothing good happens at a sleepover with technology. Nothing. I can tell you thousands of stories of girls that were videotaped in showers, somebody saying, so Sarah, what do you think about Katie? And hitting voice record and then sending it to Sarah while I'm at the sleepover. Nothing good happens. So have a basket. And when they come over, say, I'm going to give you 30 minutes to be on your devices. The rest of tonight, you're actually going to be human. It's going to be so cool. We're going to be human together. Have a sleepover. Imagine that. Lastly, and I have some flyers here tonight, one of the apps that I'd highly recommend you looking into is called Bark. So this is a conversation that popped up on Bark. So Bark is an app that you sync on any device of theirs and your device, and every night you get a real-time update of anything you need to be worried about. If you want to know about profanity, bullying, predation, explicit content, suicidal tendencies, anything that you want to know, you will receive. And you get to pick if you want to set it super tight, you want to know everything, or super loose because your kid's 17 and he's doing a pretty good job. So it allows you to see conversations that you probably need to know about. The best part about it is it monitors Snapchat and Instagram. The second best part about it is underneath this conversation, a drop box comes down and gives you 3 tips to think about before you completely freak out. And they're written by psychiatrists and psychologists who give you very developmentally appropriate things to think about before you go up to your student and say, what the heck is this? So there are many ways for $7 a month and for a $300 router that you can begin to protect your kids. So I'd highly advise, if it's not Bark, there are plenty of other apps out there that do similar things. This is the one I recommend most often because it does 150 different platforms, including video game platforms. So a lot of things happen on video games as well as social media. So I've said a whole lot in a very short amount of time. So I will open for questions. Yes? Sure.
There's a balance between allowing your child to experience friendships on social media and also texting and such, and then also protecting that. So I went from one extreme to the other. I've been everywhere across that spectrum, and I'm not sure what is an appropriate balance, and I'm sure it's different for everyone, but I'm at a point where I'm checking it once in a while. I want to give her the autonomy.
Yeah, it's so hard. What I would say is every kid is wired differently. So I have a set of twins. One is going to be a total nightmare online, and one could care less. And so even in the same household, it may look different. And so I think there's so much information coming at us as parents that if your gut is telling you that she's doing pretty well, I would go with your gut, but I would also think about having something like this where you're just choosing, I just want to know if there's any distress, and I just want to know if there's any predation. So there's kind of a happy medium between safety and privacy. And our real goal, for me at least, is can you be a decent human being? Are you moving forward socially and emotionally and doing pretty well? And are you safe? I mean, really, those are the 3 things that I'm looking for. My goal, again, is by 15, 16, that they're starting to take flight, but I'm still going to have something like this. And I will tell you, in the past year and a half, I've changed my mind a little bit about 17 and 18-year-olds. When we take phones away, we are taking away oxygen and a lifeline. So if and when you take a phone away because somebody did something inappropriate, wrong, etc., is being a jerk to you, we have to replace it with some sort of support. Because I have talked to many families who have lost their students to suicide, who were dancing with the device back and forth, and then after the student was no longer there, they looked in it and they were like, oh my gosh, no wonder he was so angry, he was depressed. No wonder he was so upset, this person was being horrible to him. And because they were 17 or 18, the parents were like, he should have been fine, but he wasn't. And there's some finality to junior and senior year of like, oh my gosh, I have to go out in the big world and be an adult. And so I would still recommend having something to balance the safety piece. Now, people that are tracking their kids across ASU campus, that's not something I would totally subscribe to. At some point, they need to take flight. Other questions? Yes.
I've got a 13 and a 17-year-old, and my 17-year-old at this point is using her devices, speaking debates, doing all that. It's very much a lifeline. All of their schools use their phones to notify them about literally everything. They communicate, they do everything via the phone. The research they do is all via their phones or their tablets and what have you. And so then the matter becomes, you really can't take it away because they won't get anything done. They won't be able to communicate with their teachers. They can't do anything. My big concern is one of time management, because kids have delayed sleep phases, especially. They'll end up, their prime time is the middle of the night instead. And so for me, taking away the device at the time when I want to go to bed, they're just getting warmed up and starting to wake up, and that's when their brain is working.
Yeah.
And so it's balancing that physiologic reality with trying
it's
to bring some semblance of functional sleep hygiene to them that is hard.
Yeah. And I wish I had a super great answer for you, but what I have found is like K through 6, we do a pretty decent job of not allowing too much of that to happen. And then 7 through 12, it's what you're experiencing. And so I would encourage you at the high school level especially to be talking to site council and PTO and principals about what those stats say. Like the stats of anxiety, depression, and stress are directly correlated, not causal, but correlated to 17,000 notifications of I just got a B+ on this. Like the whole grade portal thing, that was supposed to be a communication tool, not a pawn in our parenting game. So I don't have a great answer for you because the state standards and the federal standards are telling our schools our kids need to learn how to use this. And so their hands are sort of tied by the ITSE standards as well, that this is an advancing tool. My rub at the high school level especially is I sit in the back of classrooms and I watch kids do research, and 20 of them are doing research and 6 of them are Snapchatting and Instagramming. And so I do think it's very difficult to teach, and it's very difficult as a student to just be so stimulated all the time. I think those statistics are a direct reflection of that. Yes?
What I'm trying to say. So we've had to kind of figure out, I need to leave some time in case I need to talk to that person later on.
That's great. Self-governance. Yeah, it's hard work. The whole thing, all of this is exhausting, right? It's like a whole other full-time job. But if you would have heard me speak 2 years ago, I would have had a whole chart of apps and what app you needed to know about and all of that. I got away from that because every day another app's coming out. I would encourage you to really sit down with your child and have them teach you. I learn everything I know from teenagers. I sit down every month and say, what's the new thing? What are you doing? They've taught me everything I know. So if we're gonna bridge this gap of us versus them, dial them into the family table and say, I really wanna understand this. Tell me more about what you're doing on Snapchat. I'd really like to understand. And if you get a good answer, let me know. Yes.
So I have a question, but I want to support it with something first. So how do we not just be on the defense with this thing, because, or any of that, whether it's an iPad or whatever, because when I was growing up, I was so excited to get out of high school because of the high school thing and worrying about who was popular and who was this and who was that, and the whole message of don't worry about what everybody else thinks about you, it's what you think about yourself. So how can I turn this into a tool more so in starting to preach that message again that's not being preached anymore about why are you walking into the bar fight just to get punched in the face instead of going, why do I need to be in there if all it is garbage? Like 90% of all of that is, forgive my language, is bullshit. And if you, like, where did that go? I'm stunned that, like, where did that go where what other people think about you is none of your business, period.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that whole self-esteem build-up that we got, and then all of a sudden MTV came out with these these reality shows, and it just went to shit.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, what happened? And how I
Yeah.
wanna get back to
So,
how can I use
so
this as a tool?
when and if he's using these platforms, I would be on a weekly, monthly basis really talking to him about show me the pros, show me the cons, and having him start to identify this makes me feel good. Being part of this makes me feel really cool, and let me tell you why. This, you're right, Dad. I don't want to follow that person anymore. That's not making my heart feel good. They need our guidance to do that because, as I said, the only place I get relevance is being online 24/7, especially in boy and girl world. If I'm not online all the time, then I'm losing position in the social group, just like we did on the playground. So their playground has become this.
So one follow-up question on that.
Sure.
Do you have any statistics or information on an only child? 'Cause we have an only child. And I know that maybe there's some dynamic with brothers and sisters where they can get that relevance and love and combativeness from that brother and sister, whereas
I still think, well, I know you two, so I know he's getting the goodness that he needs, but kids that are only children, my recommendation would be find them an outside mentor, outside of the family, doing something that makes their pulse race. So if they love airplanes, find them a 20-something-year-old mentor to be that person for them. What our boys and girls are desperately in need for is outside mentorship. They need their family unit, they need a mentorship family, and they need a cultural family. So most of them have two of those. The middle mentorship piece is what he or she might need.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Well, I will, go ahead. Yes. It is a rabbit hole. Yeah. Are they watching other people play? Yeah, it's like madness, right? So I'm going to give you an analogy that a father in one of my audiences gave me. He's like, well, I'm just going to defend them for a little bit because I want to improve my golf swing. So I will watch strategy on how to do that. So it is very similar as they're watching other people play. So my advice for you on the front of YouTube is really get clear on consumption. So are they consuming it to be strategic, or are they consuming it and going down the rabbit hole? And depending on the kid and how they're wired, some of them are really actually doing a decent job of getting the strategy and then applying it to the game. So when I look at screen time as a whole, what is the content, what is the context, and what kind of connection are they making? Because we as adults say, oh my gosh, you're burning your brain out, you've had so much screen time, you're gonna just turn into mush. Well, actually, no, I'm not, Mom, because I'm actually watching this makeup tutorial, and I think I want to be an esthetician. And so I'd like to watch this content for 30 minutes. What do you think? And so I would not put yourself through the torture of trying to stand over watching him watch somebody else. I just wouldn't do it. You have to have a little bit of trust. But I would also go into your YouTube settings and lock them down because you're 4 clicks away from pornography, unfortunately. Yeah, one more question. Yeah. Then you definitely need a really good router. You definitely need a really good app to monitor and supervise, but you also need to be aware of that as he makes fantastically horrible mistakes. Because those brains Anybody with ADD, ADHD, OCD, on the autism spectrum, those brains approach technology in a different way. And so already being aware of that, you're ahead of the game. And then the conversations that you're having have to be, okay, we made a mistake, I love you, we can't do that again, here's the pathway back, here's what we're gonna do. Being aware of that he's adverse to risk-taking, I think is half the battle. A lot of people just think all kids are going down the rabbit hole. Like I said, one of mine is and one of mine will not. So I really think your approach will dictate his next move. If you hammer him every time he makes a mistake or goes down a rabbit hole with shame and isolation, he will work all the way around you and then some. If you approach him with like, wow, that was sort of a dumb move, what do you think we can do next time? He's gonna come to you and keep telling you the heavy duty stuff. We do a lot of shaming and a lot of isolating, and those are the two legs that addiction stands on. Addiction to technology, addiction to substances, addiction to all sorts of things. So keep shame and isolation out of your game. So I will linger for private questions or additional questions, and I just want to thank you so much for having me here tonight. I'm around Madison a lot, so if you need me, I have a business Facebook page. If you just put in Katie McPherson, I post on this subject every single day. I do interviews with experts, so if you're looking for additional information, please look me up. I also have these flyers for you if you want to grab one. There's a discount code for 20% off for life or something. So thank you so much for having me, and I hope you have a safe night home. Yep. Thank you. You're so sweet. Thanks.